They laughed at her. 18 years old, a farm girl. No way she belonged behind a sniper scope. The jokes echoed through the barracks, every soldier certain she would fail. But when the dust settled, on a mountainside in Afghanistan, that same girl June Merrick pulled the trigger on a shot so far, so impossible, it rewrote history itself. 4,600 yards, one bullet, one man down. The 18-year-old recruit who was mocked had just shattered every sniper record ever written. Before we begin, tell us, where are you watching from, and if you believe honor and courage still matter, help keep their legacy alive. The Montana sky stretched wide and endless, a pale blue canvas broken only by the ragged edges of distant ridges. June Merrick steadied her breath, finger resting on the worn trigger of her Winchester. A prairie dog flickered into view at nearly 900 yards, no larger than a shadow on the grass. She squeezed. The shot cracked across the valley, the echo rolling like thunder. Dust burst, and the animal vanished. "Show off," muttered her younger brother, Eli, trudging toward her with a bucket of feed. At 16, he had their father's broad frame, but none of June's uncanny focus. He shielded his eyes, still not believing how she made shots no ranch kid had business even attempting. June lowered the rifle, exhaling slowly. Shooting wasn't just a pastime, it was the one place life felt steady. Out here, with the drought crushing their land and the bank pressing harder each week, precision was something she could still control. By the time they reached the house, the kitchen table was already spread with papers. Bank letters, debt notices. Her father sat heavy in the chair, hands rough from decades at the sawmill. Her mother pressed her lips tight, eyes locked on numbers that refused to add up. "We've got 6 months at best," her father admitted. "Maybe less." June looked down at her calloused fingers. She could mend fences, stack hay, ride dawn to dusk. None of it would save the ranch. That night, the recruiter came to Black Butte High. The gym smelled of floor wax and basketball nets, the same place June had given her valedictorian speech just days earlier. Sergeant Caleb Archer stood behind a folding table, his dress uniform crisp as iron. He talked about opportunities, college money, signing bonuses. Then his gaze found June, who carried a folder of score sheets, targets she had punched tighter than any hunter in 3 counties. "You did these with that?" Archer asked, pointing to the scuffed Winchester resting in its case. "Yes, Sergeant. Every shot witnessed." Archer studied her handwriting on the forms. Sub-MOA at 800 yards. Consistent groups past a mile. His brow furrowed, then eased into something between disbelief and interest. "There's a qualifying shoot next week at Fort Cobalt," he said finally. "Not for rookies. You show up with these numbers, you'll get serious attention." The ride home was silent, but for gravel under tires. June stared out at the wheat fields, gold fading into dusk. Leaving meant walking away from everything familiar. Staying meant watching it all die slow. Her mother broke the silence. "June, you're 18. Are you sure about this?" June looked at her across the dashboard. "I'm sure about one thing. The ranch won't survive without help." Later that night, sleep didn't come. She found herself drawn to the old shed at the edge of their land. The lock creaked open, and the smell of dust and oil rushed out. Inside stood her grandfather's trunk, marked with faded army stencils. She lifted the lid. Folded uniforms, medals dulled by time, letters tied with ribbon. At the bottom, a leather-bound journal filled with calculations she barely understood: wind drift, angle fire, strange symbols sketched with precision. Something slipped loose, a brass compass, worn smooth. On the back, etched words caught the lantern light. "True aim comes from the heart, not just the eye." Signed only with initials R.M., her grandfather, Rhett Merrick. The quiet man who had taught her to steady a rifle at 10 years old, who never spoke of the war yet always insisted on discipline at the range. June held the compass in her palm, the cool brass pulsing like a heartbeat. She suddenly understood why every shot came so naturally. Maybe it wasn't just practice. Maybe it was legacy. When dawn broke, she was already at the fence line, rifle slung across her shoulder. Eli found her there, still holding the compass. "You really going to do it?" he asked quietly. June nodded. "I have to." The week that followed was a blur of preparation. She ran the ridges until her lungs burned, re-zeroed her rifle until the scope felt like part of her vision. And every night she opened the journal, tracing formulas she couldn't quite grasp, but somehow felt she already knew. The morning of departure. Her father handed her a thermos of coffee without a word. Her mother hugged her long, whispering only, "Come back whole." Eli tried to joke, but his eyes betrayed him. June climbed into the recruiter's truck with the compass in her pocket. Ahead waited Fort Cobalt, a place designed to break soldiers before they even began. She didn't know what waited there, only that she couldn't turn back now. As the ranch disappeared behind her, June touched the inscription once more. True aim comes from the heart. The road stretched east, endless as the Montana horizon, and for the first time in months, possibility didn't feel like a lie. The gates of Fort Cobalt rose from the prairie like steel teeth, harsh against the morning sky. June sat rigid in the back of the transport, compass in her pocket, rifle case at her feet. She'd heard whispers about this place. It wasn't built to train, it was built to break. On the parade ground, recruits formed ragged lines under the bark of drill instructors. Captain Nora Vega cut through the noise like a blade, short, sharp. Her voice carried authority that brooked no challenge. "This course does not care where you come from. It only cares if you survive." June scanned the faces, men older, taller, with bodies chiseled by years in gyms. She felt small in comparison, but her grip on the Winchester steadied her. Beside her stood Owen Briggs, lanky, 21, a spotter candidate with sharp eyes and a quiet confidence. The first week stripped them bare, forced marches through sleet, firing drills under sleep deprivation, navigation exercises that ended with half the recruits lost in darkness. Fort Cobalt gnawed at pride until only raw endurance remained. June kept her head down, letting performance speak. At the range, her groups landed tight, shot after shot. Wind gusted across the valley, but she read it like second nature. One instructor leaned closer to his scope, muttering, "That's impossible consistency." But not everyone admired. Among the candidates was Harris Kincaid, a veteran of 2 failed selection attempts. Thick shoulders, sharper tongue. He watched June's results with narrowing eyes. One evening, after drills, June found her scope dials subtly off. Elevation shifted, windage half a minute wrong, too small to notice unless you lived with your rifle. Her chest tightened. Someone had tampered. Next morning's exercise confirmed it. Her first shot fell wide, the instructor's whistle slicing the air. She adjusted manually, compensating by instinct. By the third target, she was back on center, her rhythm unbroken. Afterward, she went straight to Sergeant Archer. He listened in silence, then checked the logs. Security footage told the rest Kincaid caught near the lockers after hours. Vega confronted him in front of the platoon. "You sabotaged equipment in a live fire program. You're finished." Kincaid spat in the dirt, glaring at June as MPs led him away. "This isn't over. Merrick, you don't belong here." The next week pushed harder. High-angle shooting from cliff edges, target transitions with seconds between calls. Spotters shouted wind tears, shooters adjusted in heartbeat rhythms. June and Owen were paired together, their chemistry immediate. "Range 1100, Owen called, voice steady despite the gale. June shifted, reading dust swirls across the canyon. Trigger brake steel plate rang. Again, again. Each impact struck faster than instructors could record. Vega lowered her binoculars, expression unreadable. "Merrick, Briggs, stay after." When the field cleared, she walked up to them. "You two operate like you've been paired for years. That doesn't happen by accident. It's trust." "Ma'am," Owen answered. "She sees what I miss. I call what she feels." Vega studied June, then handed over a sealed folder. Inside are coordinates. "Tomorrow you'll attempt a shot outside standard parameters. Fail, and you remain ordinary candidates. Succeed." She didn't finish. The next dawn, June lay prone on a ridgeline. The target shimmered far beyond what her Winchester had ever faced. 1,900 yards. Wind screamed cross valley, shifting layers like invisible rivers. Owen rattled figures, but June's mind overlaid them with instinct. She recalled Rhett's journal, the strange formulas, the compass warm in her pocket. Her breath slowed. The world narrowed to reticle and horizon. She pressed the trigger. The delay stretched eternal. Then the steel plate danced in the distance. Instructors froze. Some swore aloud. No candidate had ever landed that shot at Fort Cobalt. June just had. Later. Archer approached quietly. That wasn't luck. That was legacy. June didn't answer. She only turned the compass in her hand, the inscription hidden in her palm. She had crossed another threshold, one that few in the fort truly understood. By the end of the cycle, only 8 recruits remained from the original 24. Vega's voice cracked like a whip at graduation. You are the ones who endured. You will be sent where failure isn't an option. Orders were read, names assigned. June's heart thudded when she heard hers tied to Owen Briggs and Staff Sergeant Rico Martinez. Their destination Forward Operating Base Redwood, Afghanistan. Fort Cobalt had tried to break her. Instead, it had carved her sharper. The next test would not be steel plates on ridges. It would be men with rifles firing back. As she boarded the plane, June felt the compass press against her leg, a reminder of the line she had already crossed. Ahead lay combat, and combat would not forgive mistakes. The plane touched down hard on the airstrip, dust rising in choking clouds. June stepped off into heat that felt like an oven door opening. The mountains ringed the horizon, brown and jagged, holding secrets older than empires. A sergeant from the 101st Airborne greeted them with a grin, lined by exhaustion. 3 deployment patches on his sleeve, eyes sharp with memory. First time in country, he asked June. She nodded. He gave a knowing smile. You'll learn more about yourself here than you ever wanted. At the arrival tent, Staff Sergeant Rico Martinez found them. His uniform was stained with dust, his stance hard as stone. Welcome to Redwood, he said, adjusting his pack. Hydrate. We move in 30. The helicopter carried them over valleys carved like scars. Terrace farms clung to slopes. Villages looked peaceful, but every rooftop could hide a weapon. Martinez shouted over the engine. Most people just want to farm. Some want us gone. Your job is knowing the difference. Forward Operating Base Redwood wasn't large. Concrete barriers, razor wire, and the smell of diesel hung heavy. 200 soldiers lived inside, stretched thin but disciplined. June's eyes studied angles, high ground, possible fire points. Old ranch habits made her see threats before comforts. Their quarters were shipping containers, cramped and hot. June took the bunk nearest the door. She wanted to be between danger and her team. Within an hour, they reported to the Tactical Operations Center. Major Helena Cross, commander of Redwood, briefed them with clipped authority. A digital map glowed with red markers. Increased enemy movement along supply lines, she explained. We believe caches are hidden near the village of Koresh. Your team will provide overwatch for Echo 2 as they investigate. June leaned closer to the map, tracing ridges, noting sightlines. The ground was harsh, sparse cover, open valleys. Perfect for ambushes, perfect for a sniper's reach. She raised her hand. Ma'am, average engagement ranges. Cross didn't blink. Anywhere from 50 to 1,000 yards. The Taliban adapts fast. You'll need to adapt faster. The next dawn came cold. They moved out with Echo 2. 12 paratroopers led by Lieutenant Cameron Holt, barely 24 but already hardened by a second deployment. Before stepping off, he met June's gaze. You're our insurance. If this goes bad, you end it from the ridge. The climb to Hill 471 took 3 hours. The slope bit into their legs, the air thin and dry. June's rifle weighed heavy, but her breathing stayed even. At the top, she laid prone, unpacking her M110. Owen set the spotting scope. Martinez checked comms. Through her scope, the village looked quiet. Children ran in the streets, Women drew water. Men fixed walls with worn tools. For a moment, it looked like Montana mornings, simple and ordinary. Then the shouting began. Faint at first, then sharper running feet, metal clattering. Owen's voice cut like wire. Movement. Eastern Ridge. 5 armed. Distance 1,200. June shifted her aim. Glass cutting the haze. Figures advanced with rifles slung tight. One carried a tube she recognized instantly. RPG. Her pulse slowed. Overwatch to Echo 2. Martinez radioed. Possible ambush. Ridge East. Recommend caution. But the moment the launcher rose, doubt ended. Permission to engage. June whispered. Martinez gave the word. She exhaled, crosshair steady, pressure smooth. The shot cracked, bullet flying over 3/4 of a mile in 2 seconds. Through the scope, she saw the man collapse, launcher tumbling from his grip. Target down, Owen confirmed. The fight erupted. The remaining fighters spotted her flash and opened fire, rounds snapping against rock. Echo 2 pulled villagers to cover, returning fire in bursts. Dust clouds rose, choking, blinding. June shifted angles, engaging targets one by one. 800 yards, 950, 1,400. Her world narrowed to math and instinct, one trigger pull at a time. For 20 brutal minutes the firefight raged. When it ended, Echo 2 withdrew with no casualties. June's record 3 confirmed kills. Her first in combat. That night, silence sat heavy in her container. She cleaned her rifle, hands trembling. The faces of the dead burned behind her eyes. She pressed her palms together, staring at them as if answers might appear. Owen entered, sitting beside her. You saved lives today, he said quietly. June shook her head. I pulled the trigger. They're dead because of me. It never gets easier, he admitted. And it shouldn't. The day it does, you're done. Martinez arrived, coffee in hand, voice level but firm. Your decisions were sound. Your shots were precise. You did what was needed. He paused. But tell me, Whitaker, how are you carrying it? June whispered. It's heavier than I thought. Good, Martinez said. Soldiers who don't feel it lose what makes them human. Weeks passed, and word of June spread across Redwood. Patrols requested her team by name. Intel officers whispered about the farm girl who shot beyond doctrine. Praise came with pressure, and pressure changed her rhythm. At the chow tent one evening, June overheard 2 infantrymen. She thinks she's Annie Oakley, one muttered. The sting cut deep, because part of her feared they were right. Confidence was edging into arrogance. Major Cross soon summoned Martinez's team for a new mission. This time, the target wasn't a weapons cache. It was a commander, the man behind multiple convoy ambushes. Cross's warning was blunt. He's smart, well-guarded, and alive because others underestimated him. Don't make the same mistake. June listened, her heart steady but pride flaring. She believed she could make the shot, no matter the range. She didn't yet realize the cost of thinking that way. Orders came without ceremony. Major Cross gathered the team in the Tactical Operations Center, her voice low. Intel confirms Abdul Rahif. He's coordinating a weapons meet here 40 clicks east. Airstrike is off the table. Too much collateral. We need precision. Colonel Archer had flown in from stateside command. He studied June with sharp eyes, then tapped the map. Only viable angle is from this ridge. Range, 4,620 yards. Silence followed. The number alone felt heavier than body armor. Martinez spoke first. That's double the effective range of our rifles. Archer didn't blink. That's why you're here. His eyes lingered on June. Your grandfather bent physics once. Let's see if you can break it. Preparation consumed the night. Owen built wind tables by lantern light, scribbling numbers across plastic sheets. Martinez checked exfil routes, memorizing every canyon. June stripped the new rifle an experimental .375 Chaytak, oiling it until the metal gleamed. She touched the compass in her pocket, feeling the etching her grandfather had left behind. At 0400, the helicopter dropped them into black mountains. No lights, no chatter, just the pounding blades. Then silence as it lifted away. They moved fast, climbing ridges, skirting villages, every sound amplified by the still night. By dawn, they reached the outcrop. Sparse cover, jagged rock. But it offered the angle they needed. Owen set his scope. Martinez spread camouflage netting. June crawled forward, unpacking the rifle piece by piece. She built it like she was building herself steady, precise, unshaken. Through her scope, the compound was a beige smudge nearly 3 miles away. Trucks rolled in. Guards took posts. It looked unreal at that distance, like a diorama. But real men moved inside it. And one of them was Rahif. Owen called the first readings. Wind 12 knots southeast. Mid-valley shear at 20 from west. Target zone 8, variable. His voice was calm, but his hands were white-knuckled. June adjusted dials, visualizing invisible rivers of air. Hours passed. Heat waves shimmered, making the courtyard dance in her scope. Fighters unloaded crates, weapons glinting. Still no sight of Rahif. Martinez's radio crackled with hushed updates from Redwood. The window was closing. Then Owen stiffened. SUV arriving. Security first. There, white robe, tall. That's him. June locked her scope. The man stepped into the courtyard, gesturing, commanding. Her heart slowed to a crawl. Owen whispered the range. 4620. Martinez breathed. Your call. Whitaker. The world narrowed. She remembered Montana snow drifting over fences, her grandfather's hand steady on her shoulder. There's a moment when everything aligns. The courtyard cleared just enough. The wind dropped to a steady push. June's lungs emptied halfway. Finger tightened. The rifle thundered. Recoil slammed her shoulder. She stayed locked to the glass. 1 second. 2, 3, time stretched like wire. At 6, she saw him jerk. At 7, he collapsed. Chaos erupted. Guards scrambled. Vehicles revved. But Rahif did not rise. Target down! Owen's voice cracked. Martinez exhaled sharp. Confirmed. Pack it, we're burned. They tore down the position, sliding off the ridge as shouts echoed across the valley. Dust trails of trucks cut toward their direction. Martinez drove them hard downhill, Owen checking behind every ridge. June carried the rifle like a newborn, heavy but untouchable. At the valley floor, 2 pickups roared onto the road ahead. Martinez cursed, dragging them into a dry creek bed. Fighters scanned the rocks above, rifles ready. The team froze, hearts pounding, engines idled. Then, miraculously, the trucks pulled away, chasing ghosts elsewhere. When the helicopter finally thundered in, they were coated in dust, lungs burning. Martinez popped green smoke. The bird dipped, rotors whipping the air. They piled in, covering each other until the doors slammed shut. Inside the roar, no one spoke. June stared out the open hatch as the compound shrank to a speck. The shot still lived inside her bones, impossible yet undeniable. Back at Redwood, the debrief was clinical. Major Cross confirmed success. Colonel Archer's praise was brief. History won't record it, but those who need to know will. Commendations would be sealed, the range classified. Later, alone by the perimeter fence, June took out the compass. The last light of day caught its surface, words gleaming. True aim comes from the heart, not just the eye. For the first time, she truly understood. When leave came, she returned to Montana. The ranch fields stretched golden under the sun, fences mended, debts eased. Family greeted her with relief, unaware of what she had carried back. In the barn, she opened her grandfather's footlocker once more. Inside, she placed a new token, a spent casing from the record shot. A bridge between generations, silent but eternal. That evening, a government sedan rolled up the driveway. An old colonel stepped out, his back still straight despite age. He handed her a small box. Inside lay a silver pin, a bow and arrow over crosshairs, laurel wreath around it. For the shot others deemed impossible. He said softly, "Your grandfather left it in trust. He knew someone would rise." June closed her hand around it, the metal warm against her skin. She looked toward the horizon, where mountains met sky. The war wasn't over. Missions lay ahead. But she had crossed a line no one else had dared. The farm girl had become legend, though no book would ever print her name. And in her chest, steadier than breath, lived the truth her grandfather taught. Skill is nothing without purpose. If you enjoyed the story, consider sending a super chat to help bring more stories like this. Now, click on the video on the screen to hear another story that's just as powerful and captivating, with courage, sacrifice, and a choice that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about duty and justice.